All right, hello. Today we're in the studio and we're doing a bit of a breakdown of the song Dancing with Ghosts. This is a song from the album The Ballad of Lucy Stone. And what we're doing is just kind of breaking down a little bit of how the song's put together through the arrangement, kind of when I write the arrangement to when we bring it in the studio and why we use certain instruments and why we combine certain instruments and to really showcase some of the great musicians too that have played on these songs. So to start with Dancing with Ghosts, it's funny, this song's pretty eclectic in terms of like all the different instruments. A lot of different influences kind of came in. But sometimes a song starts just with an image. And this one, for some reason, there was a place I used to get my hair cut and they had this picture in the lobby, and it was just basically a picture of this girl riding a moped in black and white, and these guys kind of checking her out, and it said Paris 1953. And for some reason, that's kind of the image that came in my head as I was picking the instruments and kind of putting this arrangement together. So sometimes I can't explain why that is. You know, there's a little bit of maybe some French influence that kind of comes through. It's a bit of a Venetian waltz in 3/4. But yeah, so that's sometimes where the ideas come from when the arrangement starts coming together, for me anyways. So yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of start by playing the song and then just start breaking down and isolating different parts. So yeah, so we'll just kind of start from the beginning. Singer's still walking down, classical guitar, a little mysterious kind of sounding. And then we have our two flutes, a little bit of Stairway to Heaven kind of influence here. So here we're just starting. You know, when there's lots of instruments, I like to start really simple, but then we have lots of places to kind of go as we're going through. So again, this starts with just vocal and guitar and gives us lots of room to grow the song as we go. Now this next part, maybe if we pause it here, we bit of a kind of Greek influence here with just a mandolin. So, which is interesting because I had never really played a mandolin before, but chord structure-wise, it kind of lines up as a guitar. So when I only have to learn and play one song, you know, a few hours in, it's not too bad. So so with this, maybe what we'll do is we'll start by really just kind of isolating the mandolin and maybe the vibraphone as well. So we use vibes as well. Again, just to me, those were just kind of instruments that were a little mysterious kind of sounding, and they kind of just worked together as we went. So and maybe we'll add the bass in there as well, just to give it a little context. And as you can see, the bass goes down while the mandolin goes up. So they kind of separate this way to kind of grow. Okay, and we'll pause it there. Okay, and then we'll move on. So we'll just add, we had two clarinets as well that we kind of brought in here as well. Just to kind of, again, just to kind of give this mysterious kind of sound, or at least to me, this mysterious type of sound. So, and it should be noted too, when we were recording this mandolin part, the mandolin was, the intonation of it was not great. So what that means is each chord you have to play, usually you would just play one chord after the other, like a guitar or anything. Each chord had to be retuned before we could move on. So sometimes you have to kind of improvise when you have an instrument that's slightly out of tune. So as we did it, I would hold the chord and Wayne would tune it eight strings at a time to get this part. So that's some of the behind the scenes stuff that happens as we're kind of putting these things together. So keep that in mind as you're hearing the mandolin going throughout the song. Basically every chord had to be done one at a time manually. All right, so let's break this down with our clarinets added in as well. And there we go. So some of this is just, you know, part of it too is a bit of an exercise for me, just kind of like hearing how do these instruments kind of come together, how do they work together, that kind of thing. So and this leads us into the next part, which again I always enjoy kind of doing this classical or counterpoint Bach style writing to kind of show off the horns, the strings. So this next section is a bit of a string solely kind of feature part. for the song. So again, we'll start with the strings and we'll kind of add in the other parts to kind of see how they all kind of work together. So with this, we'll start with the strings, and what we have is basically our violins, and we have our cellos. And in a lot of this kind of box style writing, you would have, it was one part's busy, the other part is more simplified, and in times they kind of switch, and it adds a nice contrast. And again, then they work together kind of as a puzzle as opposed to fighting each other rhythmically. So we'll give that a listen. So again, I think we're violins, viola actually, as well as two cellos. Now the viola is essentially a big violin, and it has a little bit more of a low register range, so it can kind of go in and out between the register of the cellos or of the violin. So it's a great, I find it's a great tool to kind of use, that it can help one or the other, especially when it's a smaller arrangement of 5 strings as opposed to if you had 20 strings, right? So so that's what we'll kind of listen here. So we'll kind of give it a listen here. So you can see how now the cello gets busy and then goes simple as the violins kind of lead it on. Okay, so that's a way that they kind of contrast. Now at this point too, leading into this section, we have there's an accordion solo, and maybe this is where it comes in kind of the French influence, where the accordion came in. But in order to not just have it come out of nowhere, because sometimes that it kind of seems out of place if all of a sudden there's just an accordion solo. We use the accordion to kind of lead into with the string section. So so maybe if we can hear that same section now with the accordion, and then and also the mandolin as well. Be good, and then we'll play it all the way through, leading into the accordion solo as well. So you get this kind of waltz feel. So we're gradually adding in the accordion. So, and it's kind of complementing it nicely. And now, when it comes in, and now the mandolin's re-entered, and it's now playing what the accordion was playing rhythmically, 1 chord at a time. Okay, so we have that, and then after that we re-enter the strings, kind of re-enter the other parts. So, and then the last really big thing, or one of the last big things that I want to break down is there's this part at the end where it really builds up, and it's just 1 bar. And what I had was everybody that recorded on this album, on the Lucy Stone album, we had them play something on this bar. So it's just 1 bar of like backing vocals, horns, saxophones, all the different instruments are building into this 1 bar. So it's kind of a funny thing to ask people, can you play on this song? I just need 1 bar from you. But it was really to eventually, at the end of the song, to emphasize, to really build it up to something a little unexpected as well, in kind of a new sound. So if we can just break it down to all those instruments, maybe minus the rhythm section, just to kind of hear how all those instruments kind of come together to build up to this bigger sound. And then, yeah, and our vibes kind of at the end. And I think just the last thing, I will mention a vocal thing. I think this was one of the trickiest songs for me to sing vocally because of this last part where I kind of had to hold this really long note at the end and almost do a live fade out, right? Where it's not where we're not fading it out, but I'm just doing it and holding the note all the way through. So if we can just have that, just with the guitar as well. So this is just kind of a note vocally, that I just had to really focus on. I think I've practiced this more than any other part before recording. So if we just get that last part. With God. Also, that last chord is, for anybody who knows the theory, it is a C minor major chord, which is always, to me, I think of as a mysterious question mark at the end of the song. So again, these are just certain things, like certain sounds, certain chords, certain chord progressions. I usually tie it to emotions, feelings, you know, images, that kind of thing. And that kind of helps to paint the picture of songs like this. And that's kind of where the ideas come from, and why I choose those instruments. And sometimes it's just fun to see which instruments kind of all work together. So that's a little bit of a breakdown of the song Dancing with Ghosts. You know, so now if you give it a listen in its entirety, you'll probably be able to pick out a few more of these parts. So again, hope you enjoy.